Hello, this is Professor Marsh, and this is the last video that I'm going to be recording with respect to the IRS VITA program for 2022. This is a review of the course to prepare you for taking either the basic test or the advanced test in the IRS VITA Volunteers program. And what I'd like to do is to begin by directing you to the publication 6744. This is the publication that contains the test, and make sure that you're looking at the 2022 returns version of this IRS publication. So this is where we have all of the questions that will appear on your test, and so you can prepare them and actually review the test in advance with the materials that you've studied in preparing for the test. So let's take a quick look at some of the materials, and let's start with the basic test. Both the basic test and the advanced test have 9 scenarios, although the basic test is shorter than the advanced test. So the advanced test has 35 questions, and the basic test has 30. So for the basic course test, you have a first scenario that involves a taxpayer named Tom Brown. And so for Tom Brown, you're going to have some questions, and the first question that you get deals with filing status. So what is the most advantageous filing status allowable that Tom can claim on his tax return? So you're going to want to review the materials on both filing status, and then there's a question also about whether Tom can claim a higher standard deduction because he's blind. And so you'll find the answers to that in some of the first videos that we looked at with respect to filing status and also personal exemptions and standard deductions. So standard deduction, I think, was maybe number 19. The filing status was number 4. Personal exemptions was number 5. And don't confuse personal exemptions with the either the filing status, the dependents, or the standard deduction. So the question about standard deduction is one. The question number 2, it's a question that refers to topic number 19. So just take a look at that, and then let's go on to the next scenario. The second scenario involves Lewis and Onita Monroe. They're married and they'll file a joint return. So now you had a single taxpayer. Now you had an unmarried taxpayer, and now you have a married taxpayer. And so you're going to take a look at these questions 3 and 4. And now all of a sudden you have a question about the earned income credit. And so this is obviously one of the most important topics to study in studying for the exam. And so you're going to want to look at what their earnings are, what their situation is with respect to dependency, either them as dependents for other taxpayers or whether they have children and dependents, about their Social Security numbers, and also about their investment income, and just take a look at this and see whether or not they qualify for the earned income credit, and whether their investment income is so significant that it disqualifies them for the earned income tax credit. And you can get the answers to this series of questions 3 and 4 in lesson number 29 regarding the earned income credit, and then also that same lesson discussed a lot of the other credits. So that was a pretty important lesson. So take a look at that. Then you have your basic scenario number 3 with Sebastian and Ashley Miller. And what you'll see in this one is that they also are married and always file married jointly. And this talks about the child tax credit. So the child tax credit that was lesson number 24. That was part of the lesson on the various credits. So go back and take a look at that. And then they have a question about deduction of their contributions, and how much they can deduct if they don't itemize. And so that was right out of the materials on both the standard deduction and also itemized deduction. So there is material in your course for charitable contributions by non-itemizers. So go take a look at that. You can find that information there. Or if you get stumped on this, you can also look at publication 4491, publication 4012, and of course publication 17, your federal income tax. Then you have basic scenario number 4 for Clay and Marion Washington, and this is going to ask you about the credit for other dependents, and then also the earned income credit with respect to qualification for that because of Marion having a social security number and Clay having an ITIN. So take a look at that. Check that against the materials on the earned income credit, formulate your answer, and then the test will be much, much easier. Okay, so those are the first 4 scenarios. I'm going to let you do the rest of the scenarios on your own. They are very straightforward. When you get to scenarios 7 through 9, you're going to need to use the tax software in order to complete the exercise from the various forms and sheets and information that you're given, and then look at the results that you generate under the tax software. So do take a look at that, and you can see that the questions for the scenario with Jeff and Claire have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 6 questions, taking you through question 19. And then there's a scenario involving a Morgan Calhoun, and you can see that situation. Morgan is a single taxpayer and would, seems to have dependents, and so you're going to be asked about head of household, I suspect, and some of the other classifications and tax benefits that Morgan will have with respect to those dependents. And you can see questions from 20 to 24, so that's 5 questions regarding Morgan and whether there are children who qualify him for the earned income tax credit, the most advantaged filing status that he can take, how to deal with the disability pension, whether or not Dale is counted as a dependent because of his age, and you can see there's also a question with respect to having a balance due, and whether or not Morgan should use the IRS tax withholding estimator and adjust Morgan's withholding. So anyhow, you can see that there in the materials for scenario 8. And then scenario 9, we once again have a married taxpayer, although the taxpayer's spouse was passed away during the year. Looks like an earlier year. So you want to take a look at that. February 2nd, 2021, I suspect, is a very important date because it's a year prior to 2022, which is the year for which you're doing the tax return. So there may be a filing status that Monica has that depends upon her having had been married in the past and not having remarried. So the first set of notes in your interview notes are going to be very important to some of these questions. And so you'll want to take a look at all this information, and then there are questions 25 through 30 that relate to that. And when you're finished with this scenario, then you're done with the basic test. Now, and of course, if you don't get an 80% on the basic test, you can take the retest, and the retest asks basically the same questions but in a similar way. So if you're stumped on the test, you might take a look at the retest question and be able to narrow down your answers, because they do ask similar questions, just with a slightly different twist on them. So the most advantaged filing status for Tom is single, true or false. That's going to, perhaps help give the game away as far as what the correct answer is back on the basic test, not just the retest. So then you also see choices for how much his standard deduction is, and you can go back and you can check the tables that are in your materials and see what the standard deduction is for someone his age who is blind, and how much that would be as well. So anyhow, just keep in mind that if you check the retest as you're checking your proposed answers for the test, you may be able to find that you've made a mistake because it's not one of the possible answers for the retest. So just maybe take a look at that. So that'll help you in passing the basic test. Now for the advanced test, scenarios begin on page 68 of the form, or publication 6744. And what you can see is that they go pretty much like the basic test. You have different scenarios and different hypothetical taxpayers, and they're called different names, but they have the same amount, basically the same issues for about, I would say, 2/3 of the questions, and then about 1/3 of the questions deal with the advanced material that you didn't have to study for the basic certification. So the first question is going to be regarding Chris. And Chris's husband moved out of the home in February of 2022, and she had no contact with him since he moved out. They're not legally separated. What is the most beneficial filing status that Chris is eligible to claim? So this is going to take you back to the filing status workout and the filing status materials that we looked at in one of the very early lessons. And it's going to ask you to look at Chris's unusual situation and whether she is able to claim a better filing status than married filing separately based on George's actions. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you do the research on that in the materials as to what happens to Chris and her ability to perhaps get a better filing status than married separately. So take a look at that. Look at the earned income credit. So again, the first scenario, just like the basic course, the first scenario deals with both filing status in a little different, maybe more sophisticated way, and then it also deals with the earned income credit and whether or not Chris is going to qualify for it based on her wages and investment income and her other situation, her dependents and that sort of thing. So take a look at that. And then it also asks about the taxability of her unemployment compensation. So also you can take a look at that. And then the next scenario, we have a married couple who want to file a joint return. We have a U.S. citizen who's married to a resident alien who has an I-10 instead of a Social Security number. and their children and their wages. And this is a very, very common scenario for the VITA clinic. So you can see the questions about the child tax credit and also the child and dependent care credit, and take a look at that. So that's what those questions are about. And of course, we've discussed, these credits, and we've reviewed these, although briefly with some of the credits, but all of those materials are included in the VITA TCE Central website if you follow the links that we've provided. And you can take a look at those workouts and probably find questions very similar to these questions that will guide you to the correct answer. So it's a really good idea to go ahead and practice the questions. Maybe, I create a little worksheet here where I, listed the different topics and then which questions go with which topics. And then, referring to those, maybe spend an extra couple of hours and go through the test and check it against the materials that you have before you take the test. And I think you're going to be much happier about that. And then if you do take the test and don't, do well enough, don't get the 80% to pass, then I would strongly recommend that what you do is before you take the advanced test, go back and review what you did on the basic test, and then if you haven't already looked at the retest, look at the retest and see if, knowing the proposed answers, particularly to the true-false questions on the retest, if you had known that was true or false with respect to just one of the options that might have been on a multiple choice test on the regular test, if that would have changed your answer. And if it is, then that'll give you a key to how to correct your answers from the previous test and to get that part of the scenario correct. So in any event, good luck with your tests and your certification. And again, if you have any questions, I'm available. You can call me at any time or send me a text. I know that some of you have. And, just good luck with all of this. For those of you taking it for credit, we want you to get your certifications by this Friday, which is the 27th. I've left the portal open until almost midnight, 5 minutes to midnight on Friday, January 27th, which is Friday. So please do send me your certifications, and good luck, and contact me if you have any issues. And if you have a problem with the advanced test, maybe try the basic test and at least get your certification on that. So you can always come back next year and do the advanced one. So with that, I'm Professor Marsh, and I'm signing off for the semester. And please complete all of your required responses, and we'll hopefully see you on campus sometime soon, or perhaps over at the VITA Clinic. We're trying to get the VITA Clinic to be part of the Literary Council and at their office on Main Street in Newberry. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.